Have you ever felt truly alone, burdened by a past you desperately want to escape? Imagine carrying shadows within you, not as scars, but as living things that move when you breathe, whisper when you close your eyes, and devour every flicker of light you try to hold. For our shadow weaver, redemption isn't just a hope, it's a terrifying journey, one that demands unimaginable sacrifice. This isn't just a story, it's an exploration of how far one will go for love, even when the world itself is against them. In a forgotten kingdom where night clung to the skies like a curse, there was born a child named Redden. Unlike other children, he came into the world with shadows wrapped around his body, like smoke bound to skin. The midwives trembled and whispered of omens, of forbidden arts, for everyone knew the old legends. Shadow weaving was the mark of one touched by the underworld. Redden grew, but he was never truly free. The shadows moved when he moved. They slithered like black serpents, curling around his arms, clinging to his face, whispering in tongues that only he could hear. At first, he tried to hide it. He tried to play like other children, to laugh when the sun was out, but the shadows would not allow him. They devoured the light wherever he went. Flowers wilted near him, birds fell silent, and children fled in fear. He was cursed, they said. He was a danger, they claimed. He was destined for ruin, they declared. But what is destiny, if not something a heart can try to change? Years passed, and Redden's shadows only grew stronger. He could weave them like cloth, bend them into shapes, even craft weapons from them. And yet, every use of his power only deepened the whispers in his mind. He felt his humanity slipping, as if the more he leaned on the shadows, the less of himself remained. But then came Celiora, a healer with hands like sunlight and eyes that seemed to see through his darkness. She was unlike anyone he had ever met. She was fearless, stubborn, and drawn to his pain instead of running from it. Celiora had heard the stories of the Shadow Weaver. She knew the danger, and still, she sought him out, whispering that no soul was beyond redemption. At first, Redden tried to push her away. He told himself she could never understand. He told himself he was too dangerous, too far gone. But the truth was simpler. He was terrified, because for the first time, someone looked at him not as a monster, but as a man. And in that fragile gaze, a forbidden connection was born. Their bond was not gentle, it was fire in a storm, clashing and desperate, forged in secrecy. Every meeting carried risk, for if the kingdom discovered a healer consorting with a shadow weaver, she would be branded a traitor. But Celiora didn't care. She touched his scars. She held his trembling hands when the shadows fought for control. She whispered that love was stronger than fear. For Redden, this love became both salvation and torment. The shadows hated her. They writhed whenever she drew near, as if her light burned them. They whispered to him that she would betray him, that she could never love something as cursed as him. Yet, every time Celiora smiled, every time her fingers brushed his, Redden believed, if only for a moment, that redemption was possible. But the world does not forgive what it fears. Word spread. Rumors reached the king's ears. A shadow weaver had survived the purge, and worse, he was corrupting the kingdom's most beloved healer. The decree was swift. Redden must be captured, executed, and his body burned so the shadows could not rise again. Soldiers scoured the lands, torches in hand, hunting the one who walked with darkness. Villagers betrayed him for the coin, whispering his name in fear. And through it all, Celiora refused to abandon him. But the walls of fate were closing in. One night, as they fled through a ruined forest, Redden broke. He collapsed, clutching his chest as the shadows tore through him like fire. They screamed in his ears, promising him freedom if only he surrendered, if only he gave up Celiora. He begged her to leave him, to run, to save herself. But Celiora knelt before him, tears streaming down her face, her hands glowing with desperate light. She poured her life's energy into him, not to fight the shadows, but to soothe him, to remind him that he was not alone. And in that moment, Redden realized the truth. Love was not about being free of shadows. Love was the strength to carry them together. But the kingdom was relentless. They cornered the lovers at the edge of a blackened cliff, the soldiers' swords gleaming under the moon. The king himself declared that the healer would be spared if she renounced the shadow weaver and let him die. Celiora refused. In rage, the soldiers attacked. Redden fought with everything he had. His shadows surged like a storm, tearing through men, breaking steel, drowning the cliff in darkness. But for every soldier he struck down, more came. His body weakened, his soul cracked. And then he made the choice. Redden realized redemption could not be found in survival. Redemption could only be found in sacrifice. With one final cry, he unleashed the shadows within him, not as a weapon, but as a prison. He sealed them away, binding his own soul as the lock. The cliff shattered in the explosion, and the soldiers fled in terror. When the dust cleared, only Celiora remained, clutching the empty space where Redden had stood. His body was gone, his soul sacrificed, his shadows buried. But his forbidden love remained in her broken heart. Celiora returned to the kingdom, hollow and silent. She healed others, but her own wound never closed. People whispered of the Shadow Weaver's fall, calling it justice. But Celiora never spoke of it, for she knew the truth that love had been stronger than fear, stronger than hate, stronger than the shadows themselves. And yet, a question haunted her every night as she stared at the stars. If love demands sacrifice, was Redden's redemption truly a victory? Or just another cruel punishment by a world that never wanted him? And now I ask you, what do you believe? Was his sacrifice the ultimate proof of love, or the final proof that love itself is a curse in a world of shadows? If you want more stories of forbidden love, myth, and sacrifice, subscribe now and join me on this journey through the darkest legends ever told.